Hey guys, tonight we're diving into one of the most fascinating and relaxing traditions of Viking life, the sauna. Imagine stepping into a thick fog of steam on a chilly day, your body beginning to warm, every inch of you relaxing as the heat seeps into your bones. You're surrounded by the scents of wood and smoke, and there's a sense of peace that you can't quite shake. But this isn't just any spa treatment. It's a Viking sauna, and it's about to get a lot more interesting. The steam you're inhaling isn't only for relaxation. It's for purification, bonding, and maybe even a little bit of spiritual connection. And trust me, you'll probably wish you had a towel handy after hearing about the lengths the Vikings would go to in their sauna rituals. Spoiler, it wasn't all about just getting clean. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to post your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to know where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Viking saunas were much more than a hot bath. They were a central part of Viking life, weaving together health, ritual, and community. The whole village would gather in these spaces not just to cleanse themselves, but to bond, prepare for battle, or even commune with the gods. Historians still argue whether these baths were mainly practical, serving a survival need in harsh climates, or whether they carried deeper spiritual significance for the Vikings. Some suggest that these sweat baths were essential for maintaining Viking health, while others believe they were intimately tied to religious practices and the worship of gods like Freya and Thor. Either way, what's certain is that the sauna was a vital aspect of daily Viking life. So let's dive in and find out why. Let's start with the basics of the Viking sauna, the structure itself. These steam baths were often constructed from local materials, using wood for the frame and stones to hold and radiate heat. Think of a small circular building made of logs, with a large fire pit in the middle. The heat was generated by placing rocks on the fire, which would then be doused with water to create steam. The structure was low to the ground, designed to trap the heat inside and make the air dense with humidity, allowing the Vikings to sweat it all out. It wasn't just about heating the room, it was a whole process of building the right environment, one where the heat would be both intense and therapeutic. The walls of these saunas were often lined with stone or logs, and the floor was sometimes dug into the earth to allow a place for the heat to settle, making sure the temperatures remained high and consistent. As the heat built up, it became not just a source of comfort, but a method of cleansing. The Vikings didn't just hop in for a casual soak. They were aiming for full-body purification, making sure that every pore was open and any toxins, both physical and spiritual, were released. Historians still argue whether Viking saunas were more of a communal event or a personal ritual. Some believe the saunas were places where the entire village gathered, talking, laughing, and sharing stories, while others argue that it was more of an intimate experience, a time for the individual to reflect, heal, and prepare for life's challenges. Either way, It was a significant aspect of Viking culture, and there's no doubt that saunas played a crucial role in maintaining the health and social fabric of Viking communities. Imagine the scene. The fire is crackling, the air thick with steam, and the villagers, from the elders to the warriors, gather together to cleanse not just their bodies, but their spirits. You can almost hear the rhythm of the stones heating up, the occasional shout of laughter, and the soft hum of quiet conversation. It's more than a bath. It's a ritual, a gathering, and a purification all rolled into one. As the sauna heats up, the energy in the room shifts. It's not just about the sweat dripping from your forehead or the heat you feel on your skin. It's about the shared experience. The Vikings used these saunas for both practical and social purposes. Imagine being in that small, smoky room with several others, each person focused on something different. Some are quietly meditating on the day's struggles. Others are telling stories. And maybe the occasional warrior is preparing mentally for battle. The sweat is both a cleansing of the body and a release of tension from the soul. The true purpose of the sauna wasn't to get clean in the way we might think today. It was about purging the body of impurities, both physical and metaphorical. As the heat intensifies, you can almost feel your muscles loosening, your mind clearing, and the weight of daily struggles starting to lift. And there's something uniquely communal about it. The air, thick with the smell of wood, herbs, and steam, mixed with the shared space that binds the villagers together. The sauna wasn't just about personal health. It was a communal act that united everyone who partook in it. Historians still argue whether the use of saunas in Viking society was rooted more in hygiene or in the belief that the sauna had spiritual benefits. Some suggest that the Vikings believed the sauna had magical properties that could strengthen the body and spirit. Others believe it was a simple, pragmatic solution for hygiene in a harsh and rugged environment. No matter the reason, it was clear that saunas were an important part of Viking life. Whether they were used for health, relaxation, or spiritual cleansing, they served as a cornerstone of Viking society. In this steamy, close space, the sweat doesn't just fall from your body. It's as if you're releasing all the worries, the fears, and the burdens of life. As the heat builds and your breath deepens, you are not just getting clean, you're experiencing something much more profound. It's almost a metaphor for Viking life itself. Harsh, intense, and full of challenges, but with moments of connection, release, and renewal. As the heat of the sauna continues to build, the tension in the room becomes palpable. The Vikings weren't just here for a casual soak. They were preparing for something. Whether it was a raid, a battle, or a long journey, the sauna served as a place of mental preparation. The intense heat forces a kind of stillness where thoughts can wander, where old wounds, physical and emotional, are given a chance to heal, or at least be released. It's in this moment that the mind and body align, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. For warriors, this was the most critical part of the sauna experience. Viking warriors believed that saunas could help them physically prepare for the violence of battle. The heat, the sweat, and the camaraderie all contributed to a sense of strength and unity. They would emerge from the sauna feeling revitalized, mentally sharp, and physically ready. In the midst of this intense heat, they found clarity, focus, and a connection to their ancestors and the gods who watched over them. Historians still argue about how deeply the sauna was linked to Viking combat preparation. Some believe that it was considered a ritual, meant to purify the warriors before they headed out on their raids, while others think it was simply a form of relaxation before going into battle. Either way, there was no denying that the Viking sauna held a deeply spiritual and symbolic place in their lives, particularly for those heading into battle. Can you imagine being one of those warriors? After a long, hard day of preparation, you step into the heat, feeling your muscles relax as the sweat pours off you. You breathe deeply, inhaling the steam, and with every breath, you feel yourself ready to face whatever lies ahead. It's not just about survival, it's about becoming one with the land, the gods, and your ancestors. The sauna isn't just a place for physical purification. It's a sacred space where Viking warriors could tap into something greater than themselves. As the heat builds, so too does the sense of unity among the warriors. They might exchange a word or two, but mostly they sit in silence, each person lost in their own thoughts, mentally preparing for the tasks ahead. The air becomes thick with sweat, the heat almost unbearable, but they endure. They are Vikings, and this sauna is just one small part of the preparation they need to make before they step onto the battlefield. As you sit there, surrounded by the thick heat of the sauna, something deeper begins to emerge. It's not just the physical discomfort or the ritualistic sense of preparation that fills the room, but the connection to the land, to the gods, and to the community. This place isn't just a physical structure, it's a spiritual one, rooted in the deep, ancient beliefs of the Vikings. It's here, in the sweat and the steam, that they believed they could communicate with the gods themselves. Viking saunas weren't just for purification or preparation. They were also spaces for spiritual cleansing and connection. As the heat envelops you, it's easy to imagine how the Vikings could have felt the presence of the gods. The intense heat mirrored the fires of the gods, and the sweat dripping from their bodies could have felt like an offering, a gift to the divine. It's said that the Vikings often invoked gods like Freya, Thor, and Odin while in the sauna. Freya, the goddess of love and fertility, was thought to bring protection and strength to the union between a man and a woman, especially in marriage rituals. Thor, the god of thunder, was called upon for his strength and protection in battle, and Odin, the All-Father, was sought for wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. Viking warriors, particularly before a battle or raid, would enter the sauna to strengthen themselves, both physically and spiritually. The heat, combined with the sweat and the rituals, was believed to align the individual with the gods, preparing them for the challenges ahead. Historians still debate the depth of the connection between the sauna and Viking spirituality. Some scholars suggest that it was purely a physical ritual, a way to sweat out toxins and cleanse the body. Others argue that it had a profound spiritual significance, a way to tap into the supernatural. While there's no definitive answer, it's clear that the Viking sauna wasn't just about comfort. It was a tool for both physical and spiritual preparation. Imagine, then, how the heat of the sauna must have felt. The sweat pouring from every pore, the air thick with steam, the scent of wood and herbs, and the whispers of ancient rituals echoing in the mind. For the Vikings, this wasn't just a physical act. It was a sacred ceremony. It was a way to cleanse the spirit, connect with the divine, and prepare for the struggles of life. The sauna wasn't just a place to relax. It was a place to become one with the gods. As the steam begins to thicken, the temperature rises, and a sense of stillness settles over the room. The presence of the gods seems to grow even more palpable. The Vikings believed that saunas were more than just cleansing spaces. They were sacred, almost holy places. They were not simply for the individual, but were a reflection of the collective strength of the village, the community. Just as in battle, where every warrior plays their part, in the sauna, each person's sweat contributed to the ritual, contributing to the well-being of the entire tribe. You might feel the connection between the individual and the greater community here. Every breath, every bead of sweat, drawing you closer, not just to the gods, but to your fellow Vikings. The heat, the steam, the sweat, all of these were acts of both personal purification and communal renewal. The sauna became a place where the physical and spiritual realms blurred. Vikings were not just making offerings to the gods, but to their own families and neighbors, ensuring that they stayed healthy, strong, and ready for whatever came their way. It's easy to imagine how these rituals connected people to each other, how the communal sauna was an integral part of village life. Everyone participated in some form, whether in the ritual itself or the preparation for it. Some would gather wood, others would fetch water, and still others would tend to the fire, ensuring that the temperature inside remained steady. The whole village worked together, just as they would for any other communal task, from farming to building to fighting. Historians still debate the social importance of the sauna in Viking communities. Some argue that the sauna was one of the few spaces in Viking society where everyone, from the poorest to the most powerful, could come together as equals. There was no distinction of status in the sauna, just sweat, steam, and the shared experience of purification. Others believe that, while the sauna was important, it was more focused on individual strength and health rather than community bonding. The debate continues, but one thing is certain. The sauna was a central part of Viking life, and it played a role in shaping the social and spiritual fabric of the village. Now, picture the scene. The warm glow of firelight flickering around the edges of the room, the steam swirling, the low hum of voices as everyone prepares for the next phase of the ritual. The energy in the air is thick, not just from the heat, but from the shared experience of renewal. This wasn't a quick dip into the bath. It was a full immersion into Viking culture. You begin to feel the significance of the moment. The Viking sauna wasn't just about feeling good. It was about survival, strength, and unity. Each breath you take, each drop of sweat that falls, draws you deeper into the community and into the world of the gods. As the heat continues to intensify, the ritual takes on a rhythm of its own. The air is thick, almost suffocating, but that's part of the process. There's something deeply cleansing about it, as though every drop of sweat is not just leaving your body, but your soul. The Vikings understood this feeling intimately. To them, the sauna was a kind of spiritual trial, a place where you didn't just purge your body of toxins, but you confronted your inner self, your fears, and your weaknesses. Imagine sitting in that small, steamy room with the other Vikings, each person quietly enduring the heat, each person facing the sweat, facing the challenge. For the warriors, this wasn't just a time to cleanse themselves physically. It was a time to mentally prepare for the struggles ahead. Whether it was a raid, a battle, or a harsh winter, the sauna was a place where the Viking spirit was tested, strengthened, and renewed. Historians still argue whether the sauna's spiritual role in Viking society was more about physical endurance or mental preparation. Some scholars suggest that it was a test of character, a way for Vikings to prove their strength and resilience before embarking on their battles or major life events. Others argue that it was less about personal endurance and more about invoking the gods and connecting with the divine. The idea that the sauna was a kind of rite of passage for the Viking warrior, however, is widely accepted. During these sauna sessions, it wasn't uncommon for participants to focus inwardly, mentally preparing themselves for what lay ahead. The extreme heat was intended to be purifying, not just for the body, but for the mind and spirit. This purification process wasn't just a matter of sweat. It was about stripping away the distractions of daily life, clearing your mind, and honing your focus. Whether you were about to fight in battle or merely facing a tough season, the sauna was a place to ready your heart and soul. As the steam thickens, it's not just the heat that presses in on you, it's the expectation. There's an old Viking saying that the strength of the body is reflected in the strength of the mind, and the sauna was the perfect environment for this connection. It wasn't just the individual warrior who was being tested, but the entire community. The Vikings believed that by purifying themselves together in the sauna, they strengthened not only their own spirit, but also the bonds of the tribe. They weren't just sweating in isolation. They were sharing the burden of the heat, the struggle, and the cleansing. As the sauna session begins to draw to a close, the heat slowly starts to subside, but the sense of renewal lingers in the air. The sweat-soaked Vikings emerge one by one from the thick, steamy atmosphere, their bodies flushed and their spirits uplifted. But this moment isn't just about feeling refreshed. It's about the sense of rebirth. You can almost hear the collective sighs of relief as the pressure of the heat releases. The sauna has served its purpose. The body is cleansed, the mind sharpened, and the spirit recharged. For the Vikings, the post-sauna ritual was just as important as the session itself. The next step in the process was to cool off, often by taking a plunge into an icy river or a nearby cold spring. The shock of cold water would send a jolt of energy through their bodies, stimulating circulation and closing the pores, locking in the benefits of the sauna. This was more than just a health practice. It was a symbolic cleansing. The heat represented the struggles and trials of life, while the cold plunge was the moment of clarity, a fresh start. Historians still debate whether the cold plunge was always a part of the Viking sauna tradition. Some suggest it was an essential follow-up to the sauna, part of the purification ritual, while others believe it may have been added later, influenced by the practices of other cultures. There's also the question of how common the cold plunge was among different Viking classes. Was it a practice reserved for the elite warriors, or did the entire community partake in the ritual? As you imagine stepping into that cold water, you can almost feel the shock to your system, the sudden rush of clarity and sharpness. It's a moment that refreshes not just the body, but the soul. This cold shock symbolizes the transition from the chaos and heat of life to a calm, more focused state. A place where you're ready to tackle the challenges ahead with renewed strength and resolve. In Viking society, the cold plunge wasn't just a form of self-care. It was a moment of shared bonding. After the intensity of the sauna, the community would often gather by the water, laughing, joking, and celebrating together, their spirits lifted by the ritual. The cold water brought them back to the earth, grounding them after the spiritual and physical purification they had just undergone. So, while the sauna itself was a place for individual purification, the cold plunge was a communal experience. The contrast between heat and cold, between struggle and relief, was what made the sauna ritual complete. It wasn't just about preparing for battle. It was about preparing for life. The Vikings knew that life was full of hardships, and the sauna, with its ritual of heat, sweat, and cold, mirrored those very challenges. But with each plunge into the cold water, they were reminded that they had the strength to face whatever came next. Once the cold plunge was complete, the Vikings would slowly begin to warm themselves again. This time, not by entering another sauna session, but by resting and drying off in the open air or around the warmth of a fire. This phase was a time of quiet reflection, a chance to let the body settle after the extreme contrast between heat and cold. It was here that the true depth of the Viking sauna experience became clear. The ritual wasn't just about physical cleansing. It was about reconnecting with oneself and one's community. After the intense physical act of sweating and plunging into cold water, the Vikings would sit together around the fire, sometimes wrapped in cloaks or blankets, letting the warmth seep back into their bones. There would be a moment of quiet before the laughter and chatter of the group would begin again. The firelight danced across their faces, casting long shadows, and the scent of wood smoke mixed with the earthy aroma of the sauna. It was a time of quiet camaraderie, of shared exhaustion and renewal. There was no rush, no urgency. The Vikings had time to recover, to share stories of their lives, their battles, and their triumphs, all while bonding with the community around them. Historians have speculated about how long the recovery period might last, whether it was simply a few moments by the fire, or an extended period of relaxation that could stretch into hours. Some scholars suggest that the warmth and the sense of community were so important that this time was seen as equally essential to the ritual as the sauna itself. Others argue that it was a necessary part of the recovery process, allowing the body to regain balance after the intense heat and cold. Either way, the time spent by the fire wasn't just about physical warmth. It was a way to seal the ritual, to ensure that the mind and spirit were fully refreshed and restored. In those moments by the fire, you could see how deeply interconnected the Viking society was. Every action, the sweating, the plunging, the warming by the fire, was a part of a larger cultural practice. It wasn't just about individual purification. It was about the bond that each person shared with the rest of the village. The sauna ritual was a time when the community came together, participated in the act of cleansing, and celebrated the shared strength of their people. Imagine sitting there now, the crackling fire before you, your body warm and relaxed, your mind at ease. The other villagers are scattered around the fire, some in quiet conversation, others lost in their own thoughts. The flickering light from the flames casts a soft glow, and the steady rhythm of life begins to take over again. You're part of something much larger than yourself, a community bound by shared experiences, rituals, and an enduring connection to the land. This isn't just a break after the sauna. It's a return to what the Vikings held most sacred, the bond between themselves and the world around them. As the fire burns low and the evening settles around the village, there's a certain stillness that falls over the group. The heat of the day has dissipated, and now the air is cool, with only the warmth of the fire to protect you from the night's chill. But the sense of peace is different now. The village, though quiet, hums with the quiet satisfaction of a ritual completed. The warriors and villagers, who just moments ago were intense in their focus, now share relaxed smiles and soft laughter. The ritual has ended, but its impact will linger in their bodies, their spirits, and their connections to each other. The closing of the sauna ritual is as important as the ceremony itself. The Vikings didn't just finish and move on. They gave thanks. Whether it was through quiet reflection or spoken words of gratitude, the end of the sauna ritual was a time to honor what they had gained, both physically and spiritually. Some would offer thanks to the gods, while others would simply enjoy the quiet of the moment, savoring the calm after the storm of heat and cold. For the Vikings, rituals were never rushed. They took time to honor what had been done, to reflect on the connections they had made and the strength they had built. Historians debate whether the closing moments of the sauna ritual were more personal or communal. Some believe that this time was spent in quiet solitude, with each Viking reflecting on their own experiences and connecting with the divine. Others argue that it was a time for communal sharing, where the bonds formed during the sauna were solidified through words, laughter, and storytelling. Whatever the case, it's clear that the end of the sauna ritual was as much about the community as it was about the individual. As the last of the firelight flickers out and the villagers begin to rise, you realize that the sauna ritual wasn't just about personal health. It was about the shared experience. Everyone in the village participated in some way, whether through their presence, their stories, or their assistance in gathering the materials. The ritual was a microcosm of Viking society itself, a place where each person's role was vital, and where the strength of the individual was inextricably linked to the strength of the community. The finality of the moment is almost tangible. The sauna has served its purpose, and as the village begins to disperse, there's a quiet satisfaction in the air. The Vikings know that their bodies have been renewed, their spirits strengthened, and their bonds with each other deepened. It's a ritual that has stood the test of time, and for tonight, at least, the world outside the village feels a little less harsh. You can't help but feel that for all their fierce reputation, the Vikings understood something profound about life, that in the heat of struggle, in the steam of the sauna, there is the potential for connection, for growth, and, above all, for community. As the night deepens and the sounds of the village fade into the quiet hum of the forest, there's a sense of unity that lingers in the air. The sauna ritual, with all its sweat, heat, and cold, has not only purified the body, but strengthened the very fabric of Viking society. There's no rush to leave, no hurry to return to normal life. The Vikings have taken the time to pause, to reflect, and to renew. In a world where survival is often a battle against the elements, the sauna ritual serves as a rare moment of peace, a space where the community can gather and recharge together. The process of renewal doesn't end when the fire dies down. In Viking society, there's a deep understanding that rituals like these create bonds that transcend the physical world. The sauna ritual is more than just a physical purging. It's a spiritual cleansing, a reaffirmation of the connections that bind the Vikings together. These moments of shared experience, of collective renewal, are what make the Viking community so resilient. They don't face the world alone. They face it together, with strength drawn from each other. Historians still debate how much of the sauna ritual was seen as a spiritual act versus a purely practical one. Some suggest that the connection to the gods was the central purpose of the sauna, while others believe that it was more about strengthening the bonds of the tribe. There's no definitive answer, and perhaps that's the beauty of it. The sauna ritual served as both a personal and communal experience, providing physical relief and spiritual connection in equal measure. The legacy of these sauna rituals is still felt today in many cultures, even if the details have changed. Modern saunas, with their heat and steam, are still a place for individuals to relax and purify their bodies. But the communal aspect of the Viking sauna, the shared experience, the connection with the land, the bond with the gods, is something that has faded from most modern-day rituals. The Vikings understood that it wasn't just about getting clean. It was about making sure that, when the battle was over and the world had cooled down, the people would be strong, healthy, and ready to face whatever came next, together. In those final moments, as the Vikings move away from the fire and into the quiet of the night, they carry the energy of the ritual with them. The bonds they've formed in the heat of the sauna will stay with them, even as the world outside the village continues to turn. And though the sauna's steam will eventually fade, its impact on the Vikings will last far longer. As the night continues its quiet progression, the village begins to settle into a calm rhythm. The last embers of the fire crackle and fade, leaving only the sounds of distant owls and the rustling of trees in the cool breeze. The Vikings, now fully refreshed and reinvigorated from their sauna ritual, return to their homes or gather around small fires scattered around the village. The weight of the day's challenges has been temporarily lifted, replaced by a shared sense of renewal. The cold night air seems to carry with it the lingering energy of the ritual, the sense of togetherness that only comes from such an intimate and communal experience. Even as the village quiets, there's an unspoken understanding that the bond created in the sauna isn't something that fades easily. In Viking society, these moments of shared ritual were pivotal. The sauna wasn't just about health. It was a cornerstone of their social fabric, a way to maintain balance between the individual and the community. While they may have faced the harshest of conditions, from brutal winters to violent raids, the Viking spirit was rooted in this sense of shared strength and unity. It was in these moments of communal activity that they found a sense of resilience, a resilience that extended far beyond the sauna. Historians still argue about the deeper meanings behind Viking rituals like the sauna. Some believe that the sauna served as a spiritual purification, preparing the Vikings for the hardships they would face in battle or in everyday life. Others suggest that the ritual was more about survival, a way to ensure that the body remained healthy and strong in the face of the harsh Viking climate. Whatever the exact reasoning, it's clear that the sauna was more than just a health practice. It was a method of ensuring the longevity of the Viking community, both physically and spiritually. The fact that these traditions have survived through the ages speaks to their importance. While modern saunas may have lost some of their spiritual significance, they still serve as a place of relaxation and healing. The Viking sauna, however, was about more than just relief. It was about rejuvenation of both body and spirit, a reminder that strength comes not only from individual endurance, but from the shared experience of facing life's challenges together. As you sit by the fire in the quiet of the night, the glow from the embers casting soft shadows around you, You can almost feel the weight of those Viking rituals, how they shaped not just the individuals who partook in them, but the entire community. The sauna wasn't just about getting clean. It was about strengthening the Viking spirit, connecting with the land, and fortifying the bonds between people. In these simple yet profound rituals, the Vikings found the strength to face whatever came next. As the night stretches on and the village settles into a gentle slumber, there's a feeling that the sauna ritual lingers in the air, an almost sacred reverberation that continues to shape the atmosphere of the community. You can sense the quiet strength that emanates from every person in the village. The effects of the ritual aren't just physical. They seep into the very fabric of Viking society. These rituals, shared among the community, served as a foundation for how they interacted with one another, how they weathered the storms of life together, and how they honored the gods. By now, most of the village is resting, the day's festivities having left their mark. But for those who remain awake, perhaps in the warmth of their homes or near the dying embers of the communal fire, the impact of the sauna's spirit continues. The older generations whisper to the younger ones about the importance of maintaining these traditions, not just for health, but as a way to honor their ancestors. In the Viking world, the connection to the past wasn't just a matter of remembering. It was about living it, breathing it in every shared experience. Historians have long debated whether the Viking sauna rituals were seen as something purely practical, or whether they were integral to their religious and spiritual beliefs. Some argue that it was a community-centered event, essential for the daily life of the Vikings, while others believe that it had a deeper connection to their belief systems. The fact that Viking societies often linked physical and spiritual practices demonstrates the depth of their connection between the human body and the divine. Now, with the quiet of the village around you, you realize that the sauna, in its ancient form, wasn't just a means to an end. It was a vital part of what made Viking life so uniquely resilient. It's easy to imagine the feeling of that first breath of cold air after the intense heat of the sauna, the sense of rebirth that accompanied the cold plunge, and the feeling of unity that pervaded the whole village. The Vikings had an understanding that the bond between individuals wasn't just personal. It was rooted in the shared effort, the shared trials, and the collective strength of the community. The ritual of the sauna, with its physical demands, its spiritual significance, and its communal energy, encapsulated the essence of Viking life. It wasn't a solitary act, but one that brought the village together in ways that no other ritual could. The quiet reverence of the sauna may have passed, but its legacy remained in the way the Vikings lived their lives, supporting each other, enduring hardships together, and preparing for whatever the future might bring. The sauna was only one of many ways that Vikings lived with intention, focused on their strength and unity. As dawn begins to break over the Viking village, the soft glow of the early morning light illuminates the stillness that remains after the festivities. The night's laughter and music have faded into the quiet whispers of the night, and the village is now calm, though the energy of the sauna ritual lingers in the air like a warm, comforting blanket. You realize that this quiet moment is not just a pause. It's a continuation of the strength, unity, and connection that were cultivated in the sauna the night before. The Vikings didn't just wash away their impurities in the sauna. They forged bonds, renewed their spirits, and aligned themselves with the gods. And in the quiet aftermath, you can almost feel the impact of that ritual seeping into the fabric of daily life. The rhythm of life in Viking society is one of constant challenges, of harsh conditions and constant threats. But the sauna, with its heat and its rituals, provided a sanctuary, a place where the community could pause, reflect, and emerge stronger. Historians still argue about how much of the Viking sauna tradition was about spiritual purification versus physical health. Some scholars believe the practice was directly linked to Norse beliefs about the gods, specifically gods like Freyja, Thor, and Odin, who were invoked for blessings of strength, protection, and fertility. Others suggest that the sauna's primary purpose was more practical, aimed at maintaining the physical health of the village and ensuring that the people remained strong enough to survive the rigors of Viking life. In either case, the sauna was more than just a place to sweat out toxins. It was a cultural pillar. It was a space where Vikings could cleanse themselves physically, mentally, and spiritually, preparing for the trials of the day ahead. The shared experience of enduring the heat, of emerging from the sauna refreshed and renewed, was a symbolic act of transformation. The Viking sauna was about more than individual health. It was about making sure that the entire community, as a collective force, was ready for whatever the future might bring. As the village begins to stir with the first rays of sunlight, you get the sense that the strength of the community has been renewed as well. The bonds formed in the heat of the sauna carry over into the day's work, as the villagers rise to continue their daily tasks, ready to face the challenges that lie ahead. The quiet aftermath of the sauna ritual becomes a shared understanding of endurance, unity, and the resilience that is needed to survive in Viking society. You can't help but think that, despite the harshness of their world, the Vikings had something profound figured out. They understood that true strength didn't just come from physical might. It came from the ability to come together as a community, to cleanse, to renew, and to face whatever challenges came their way with a sense of unity and purpose. The sauna wasn't just a physical ritual. It was a way to fortify the soul, to bring everyone back to center, and to remind them that they were not alone in their struggles. As the morning unfolds, the energy of the sauna ritual continues to echo through the village, but now it feels like a part of the routine. The moments of spiritual renewal have melded into the day's work, becoming a quiet undercurrent that gives the villagers strength. Life moves forward, but you sense that the bond formed in the heat of the sauna between individuals, between the gods, and between the land is still strong, still holding the village together. Viking society was not one for grand pauses. Their days were filled with work, battle, and survival. Yet, the sauna ritual was one of those rare moments where everything stopped. For just a short while, the harshness of Viking life was set aside, and in its place was a sense of calm and unity. There's something deeply grounding about that, a reminder that even in the midst of the chaos and the constant struggle for survival, the Vikings understood the need for moments of stillness, for rituals that helped them reconnect, refresh, and recharge. Historians still debate whether the sauna's role was merely practical, or if it was deeply intertwined with Viking identity and spirituality. Some argue that it was about survival, about maintaining physical health in a harsh environment. Others suggest it was more about spiritual renewal, a connection to the divine forces that governed their lives. But the beauty of the Viking sauna lies in how it blends the two, offering both physical relief and spiritual strength, preparing not just the body, but the soul for whatever lay ahead. In the long run, the Viking sauna was much more than a ritualistic cleansing. It was a symbol of their way of life, a way of balancing the harsh realities of their world with the need for healing, renewal, and unity. The shared experience of enduring the heat, facing the cold plunge, and then gathering around the fire was a reminder that life wasn't meant to be faced alone. They knew that survival, strength, and victory came not from individual effort alone, but from the collective strength of the community. As the sun sets on the village, the bonds forged in the sauna are reflected in the quiet camaraderie of the evening. The warriors who once stood strong in the heat now sit by the fire, their faces lit by the warm glow. They share stories, laugh, and enjoy the comfort of the fire after the intensity of the ritual. The villagers, too, carry on with the knowledge that they are not just individuals in a brutal world, but part of a community that can withstand the toughest challenges. Tonight, as the warmth of the fire mirrors the heat of the sauna, there's a quiet satisfaction in the air. The Viking sauna wasn't just a place of purification. It was a space where life itself was renewed. And with every passing day, with every shared ritual, the village grows stronger. The sauna may be over, but its effect lingers, woven into the fabric of Viking life. Now, dim the lights, settle in, and rest, knowing that you, too, are part of a long tradition where strength, unity, and a shared sense of renewal carry us through even the toughest times. Sweet dreams, and remember, the heat is always waiting for you, in more ways than one.